Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake was the guiding principle of our OP in the first story. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Get fired. At one point, I was managing a small team of business development reps at a small software company. These are the recent grads that would be phone monkeys, making cold calls, trying to set up appointments for the real salespeople. I had two reps at the time, Amy and Paul. They were young but hungry. They listened to training and were generally great employees. At one point, Paul and I realized that we had some mutual friends, and that helped our relationship. Fast forward a few months from their hiring, and my boss grabs me one morning for a meeting with HR. Apparently, Amy had filed a harassment complaint against me, alleging some crazy things. She reported that my single goal was to ruin her career and that I would make sure she was fired. The HR meeting was a formality as no one believed it, but they had to do the investigation. Nothing came from it, but I would never be alone in a room with Amy again. If she came to talk to me with no one around, I would go to a common area of the office or invite someone into the discussion. A few more months and Paul asked me to be a reference. The company was a mess and the CEO was running it into the ground. I was more than happy to do it as I was job hunting myself. I just asked he keep me in the loop about interviews and offers, and I would cover his time out of the office. Not surprisingly, he landed a job pretty quick and gave his notice to me. Also at this time, IT was doing hardware upgrades to laptops, adding more RAM, allowing us to run the latest version of our product for demos. I coordinated with IT to have both their machines done one day and told them to take a long lunch. Well, a little over a year before this happened, one VP had been fired. After he left, I learned it was common practice for IT to review all the Skype chat logs from the machine. Luckily, it meant me getting a small bonus because the VP was trashing the company to me, but I wasn't. And I was vaguely praising the CEO. I'm no dummy. I don't have those conversations over channels that can be reviewed. With Paul out the door and Amy being a lying C-word, I asked IT to review their Skype logs during the upgrade because something seemed fishy. I was right. Even though Amy deleted her chat logs, Paul didn't. There were chats in there about how they were both job searching, and Amy had gotten an admin password for our CRM. She'd been pulling customer lists to take with her. Furthermore, she'd been bragging about receiving a $1,500 bonus to drop the harassment complaint against me, as the CEO was worried that any complaints or lawsuits would scare away investors needed to keep the company going. Oh, and she chatted that they made me sign a non-disclosure about it, but they won't find out. Oh, she was toast. Director of IT and I went straight to HR and the CEO with the printouts. The decision was quick. Both were to be terminated immediately. Amy for unauthorized access of data and breach of her non-disclosure, and Paul for some bullcrap reason of not reporting her. They got back from their lunch, and I immediately called them into HR. Paul was given 2-week severance, but Amy needed to pay back her $1,500 hush bonus because of her gross misconduct. She wasn't eligible for severance or unemployment, and the repayment was deducted from her final check and quarterly bonus. Her exit check was less than $10. Paul had 2 weeks off with severance. We remain connected, but I love seeing Amy changing jobs on LinkedIn every 6 to 9 months. And our next story. And our third story. You want me to save the company $34 million a year? I'll do just that and get you fired for it. This is a story that's somewhat legendary around my mine site that I work at, and I think it belongs here. Skip down if you don't feel like reading. One of the big bosses, we'll call him BB, around the site decided to be a smartass one day and instructed someone a level below him, we'll call him AA, to save the mine $34 million a year. Here's what's important. BB said he didn't care how he did it, he just told AA to get it done, or else he'd make sure they'd lose their job. Now AA had been putting up with crap from this BB for the past few months. There's a code of conduct and responsibility that needs to be followed, and BB worked very hard to find his way through every loophole possible that stopped him from slacking off. This includes dumping a fair amount of extra work onto his employees. But the one in this tale of pro-revenge had it the worst. BB would constantly belittle AA on the mine radios, dump extra paperwork on him, including BB's own paperwork, make him drive other employees around the mine site when AA was already swamped with the extra paperwork, causing him to lag behind in his other duties that he was supposed to be doing. AA was no assistant. It wasn't his job to do BB's crap. And if he refused, BB technically could start the process of AA's termination through some bullcrap loophole. So here's where it gets interesting. After BB instructed AA to save the mine $34 million a year, AA figured out damn well that BB was trying to kiss the butt of the higher-ups and make himself look good. However, instead of doing the work himself, he's once again dumped it onto AA. And AA had had enough. BB has his designated time off and comes back to find a massive, and I mean massive, this thing is one of the biggest production movers on site, conveyor line parked up miles away from where it's supposed to be operating and in the equipment graveyard. If you haven't seen a conveyor line, think if a crane and a conveyor belt had an enormous love child. It has been disassembled and sits in 3 enormous pieces. BB flies off the handle. He explodes. He gets on the mine radios and screams for AA to get his butt down there. AA rocks up, and when asked what in the hell he's done, AA simply shrugs and says, "I pulled the conveyor out of production. It saves you $34 million a year." No matter what BB argued or how much he threatened, AA simply said, "You told me to save $34 million a year. I did just that." No matter how much the mine would actually lose with this massive machine out of construction, AA did as he was told. Of course, the big bosses found out, and when they questioned BB about it, he pointed the blame at AA. Once again, AA stood his ground and said that he did as he was told. Once BB confirmed what he had instructed AA to do, it wasn't long before BB was sacked. He packed his stuff and walked out of the gate that same day. AA still happily remains stress-free and not to be effed with. Wow. Give half-assed instructions and get half-assed results. And our next story. I had my first IDWHL moment. Yesterday I was browsing at a big box store while waiting for a prescription. I wandered over to the hair color aisle and was looking at the different colors, debating on switching up my hair color. Noticing a woman debating between 2 colors on a brand I knew that turned out really dark, I recommended she use the lighter of the 2 colors and told her they ran really dark. She was appreciative, as no woman wants a home hair color disaster. Just then, an older gentleman tapped me on the shoulder and asked where he could find mousse. I smiled and asked him what kind he needed. He had no clue. His wife just said mousse. Okay, no worries. I grabbed him mousse that I use and told him it was a good product and hoped she'd be happy with it. Then he asked about facial wipes. Since I wasn't doing anything besides waiting, I took him over to the cosmetic section and helped him find the facial wipes. At this point, my name was called over the speaker to come to pharmacy. I excused myself to go and told him I'm sorry, but my prescription is ready. He had a moment of realization. I didn't work there and apologized profusely and thanked me so much for my help. He had tears in his eyes, y'all. I asked him why he was crying, and he said his wife was just diagnosed with cancer and he was out of his element buying lady products. That my kindness to him was so unexpected and how grateful he was. I hugged him and said, it's the least I could do. And besides, he helped me pass the time waiting for my prescription. Just a story that shows not every customer that makes a mistake is going to be a jerk. He was the sweetest and most polite gentleman, and I truly enjoyed helping him, even if I didn't work there. And our last story. Steal electricity? Good luck getting home. A little backstory first. I work for a company that's part of a small strip mall. Located in the strip mall, to our immediate left is a pho restaurant, and to the right we have a dental office. Located at the rear of the building between us and the dental office is a maintenance room for the building. Each store manager has a key to this room. Here's the problem. The pho place moved in back in May or so, and since day one the manager's been plugging his Nissan Leaf into an outlet in the maintenance room to charge. The car only has a range of about 90 miles, and he drives over an hour to work, so he has to charge it during the day. This wouldn't be a problem if he was using the electricity they pay for, but he isn't. This has gone mostly unnoticed by our landlord because she's rarely around. That is, however, until last night. To plug his car in, the pho manager had to prop open the door to the maintenance room. And in Iowa, our winters can get fairly brisk. For instance, today the wind chill is a balmy -20. Some equipment in the maintenance room is temperature controlled, and last night the temperature dipped below the acceptable threshold. When our landlord made her way here, however, the car was gone and the door closed. So when she received another temperature warning this morning, she decided to come back. Mr. Pho Manager parks his car directly outside our back door so the cord can reach the maintenance room. So naturally, my day begins with our landlord pounding on our back door, demanding to know who the car belongs to. I kindly informed her that it belongs to the manager of the pho restaurant. When asked why nobody had mentioned it to her, I told her I had just assumed she'd approved it. I was told in no uncertain terms that she had not. She then proceeded to ask one of my associates how long this had been going on, to which he responded it'd been occurring since they set up shop in May. As you can imagine, she was less than thrilled with this news. She proceeded to thank us for our time and stormed toward the pho restaurant. Now for the revenge. Our landlord proceeded to call me after approximately 20 minutes to inform me she'd spoken with the pho employees and manager, and nobody seemed to remember who drove the car. To solve the problem, she came up with a simple solution, and unfortunately for them, her pettiness levels are over 9,000. She took their maintenance room key back and proceeded to unplug the charger from his car, finally locking it in her maintenance room. She was kind enough to leave a note telling the owner if they would like to get home to give her a call. The best part is, since the car takes approximately 8 hours for a full charge, Pho Manager plugs it in all day. But since it had been unplugged less than an hour after being plugged in, when he goes to leave this evening, he'll not only have to call her to get his charger back, but will have to wait the remaining 7 hours or so for an adequate charge to get home. Hope he didn't have plans. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.